Welcome to 843 TV. I'm your host, Wayne Morris with WHHI-TV.
And I'm your host, Carrie Smoot Manning from the Village Spa.
And today we have a special treat. It's an all Spring Island show again this week. And we are coming to you from the old Tabby ruins, which are just such a historical site and so beautiful. We're just so happy to be here. Which brings us to our first guest. It's Dr. Chris Marsh. Chris is the Executive Director of the Spring Island Trust. And he's going to tell us a little bit about the Trust and what they do and how they're helping shape Spring Island.
And then our second guest, Mr. John MacArthur, he is the president of the Spring Island Trust, so he kind of gives us another perspective of why the trust is relevant and how it's important to the community.
Yep.
And then last but not least, we have Mr. John Strother. He is the broker in charge here on Spring Island, and he's going to highlight a couple home sites for us and showcase why you would want to come live on Spring Island, which I must say is pretty self-explanatory because it's an amazing place. So make sure that you come right back for more 843 TV.
Where communities come to speak.
843 TV, where Bluffton comes to speak.
Where Spring Island comes to speak.
Where the town of Hilton Head Island comes to speak. Where Port Royal comes to speak.
.843 TV,
where communities come to speak.
Welcome to 843 TV. We're here now with Dr. Chris Marsh. He's the Executive Director of the Spring Island Trust. Thank you for being with us this morning.
It's great to be here, thanks.
So tell everybody what the Spring Island Trust is and why was it created?
When the master plan for Spring Island was set up, they wanted to make sure that the natural areas were preserved and taken care of in perpetuity. And in order to do that, they created a nonprofit called the Spring Island Trust that actually owns those lands that are nature preserves at this time, plus the historical sites, such as the one we're at right now.
In front of these amazing buildings that are how old?
These were built around 1800, but there was a house here in 1776, at least when John Cochran was born. So we know that they've been here a long time.
It's very rich in history.
Chris, what kind of programs does the Spring Island Trust offer?
The Spring Island Trust, in addition to being responsible for taking care of the special places on the Spring Island, is also responsible for the education programs, particularly those programs that help people appreciate how special Spring Island is. And we have the traditional nature programs. Tony Mills is our education director. Many people may have seen him on TV with Coastal Kingdom. They do programs all different kinds for the members here so that they can appreciate where they live and know why we're trying to take care of it. But we also have some what I would call non-traditional programs. Carl Oland is our landscape ecologist and horticulturalist. And so we have a native plants project, and a lot of people learn by doing. They raise native plants for sale, both to Spring Island members, and they have 2 sales to the public as well. He goes to members' home sites and teaches them about what they have there and how they can also landscape in a way that's compatible with the philosophy of Spring Island.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Really neat.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Nobody that lives here probably is from here.
Well, it's interesting because people that have been raised in South Carolina, when they come here, they said, you know, I never really looked at nature before.
Right.
But now that I've gone through these programs, I see everything in a totally new way, and I grew up here and didn't know.
Right.
Well, in addition to all the nature, the Trust also oversees the arts programs and the arts collection that we have here at Spring Island. Tell us about the role that those programs play for the community.
When you talk about moving to a place like Spring Island, people think about the nature. But this is a community of people who want to keep learning and are staying very active. And so Betsy Chafin, who was the founder of the Spring Island Trust, had in the original vision that arts would also be important. And started out with a visiting artist program, but through the art workshops, engaged people to learn more about art. Many of the people that take the art programs weren't even involved in the arts before they moved here. But now we have a clay program, the clay group. We have 2 kilns. We have lectures series. We had one on the history of the Civil War. And so there's always something new and different. Our Trust Talks, which is our seminar series on Thursday nights, is a really big hit. And we have speakers from all over the country that will come here thanks to all the connections that Spring Island members have. So it looks like a sleepy island, but it's very active, and for people who want to keep learning more, it's a great place to be.
And I can attest, you can't possibly do everything.
Yeah.
So many things going on.
And the other thing that's interesting is people will come here and say, there's nobody here because of the way it looks, but then we'll have a trust talk and there'll be 110 people show up that night.
Right.
And so that just shows the multi-dimensional aspect of life here on Spring Island. You can have complete seclusion, but there's also lots of social opportunities.
And the trust really, I mean, the communities in our area are fantastic, but the trust kind of is so unique. It separates Spring Island from a lot of the other communities, it seems like.
It does, and Jim Chafe and Jim Light were the ones that had the original vision, but Betsy Chafin, Jim's wife, was a key player in helping create a vision where it would really be a dynamic community where people would want to live. And they created the model where the Spring Island Trust is funded in part by a real estate transfer fee. So every time a home or a lot is sold, a small percentage is paid by the seller to ensure that the trust has a source of financial income. And so because it was started in 1990, it was really ahead of its time.
Very much.
Palmetto Bluff, for example, is another place where the people that worked here helped start Palmetto Bluff, and I've gone to numerous places around the country where people wanted to learn more about Spring Island. So it's a model that's now throughout the country of helping people understand how much you need to do in order to live with nature. A key thing was to teach everybody that you had to determine what was special about the place and preserve that first before you even started thinking about where you would put the human components of the community.
Well, speaking of Mr. Chafin, obviously he was the visionary 25 years ago. So in the last 25 years, what has Spring Island meant not only to this community but all communities?
When you look at people trying to learn more about it, the fact that academics come here to do surveys and talk. There's an interesting book that was published a couple years ago called A Delicate Balance by University of South Carolina Press by Dr. Angela Halfacre. And that gives a good summary of what it's about. But it sets a standard and a vision that you can live with nature if you attract the right people with the same values and you have the right structure even within the master plan. You can't add this after the fact. It doesn't work. It has to be in every document before even anything is started on the ground.
That makes a lot of sense.
Well, because this is such an amazing place, quickly tell everyone how the public can come visit Spring Island.
Spring Island is a private, exclusive community, but through the generosity of the Spring Island members, we also have a nonprofit called the Low Country Institute. And the Low Country Institute's mission is to help people in the region make informed decisions. We have a program called Master Naturalist Program that is done in partnership with Clemson Extension, and we host that program here. It always has a waiting list. But in addition, our Native Plants project, our group there that raised native plants, as I mentioned to you before, does garden tours. And so if there is a garden tour, a group that wants to come do a garden tour, then that's another way that they can also get a sense of what Spring Island is about.
Well, it's an amazing, beautiful place. So for more information, visit their website and make sure that you come right back for more 843 TV.
Welcome back to 843 TV. We are now joined by the president of the Spring Island Trust, Mr. John MacArthur. John, how are you?
Fine, thanks.
Thank you for having us here
Glad to have
today. This is awesome. So how did you find Spring Island? How did you get involved?
Well, I was in Miami after living around the world and wanted to get back to the Carolinas, looking at in coastal Georgia, South Carolina. And my late wife, who was an artist, was reading an article in Southern Living magazine that was about Spring Island. This was January of 2005. And she said, you know, John, this sounds like your kind of place. You might want to check it out. And I did. And by June 1st, we own property here.
John, as you were looking at that, how important was having the Spring Island Trust here in your decision to buy on Spring Island?
Well, you know, as a newbie coming here, I didn't fully appreciate at the time the dynamics of different organizations, which I much better understand today. But what was important is the nature of Spring Island, the presence of it. That a third of this island is managed as nature preserve, but then in addition, there's a lot more property that gets managed in a certain way that's similar to the way we do the nature preserve. So basically about half the island is like living in nature, and that was very, very important. I then understood all of the other activities, the nature, not just the nature, but the arts and trips and tours and things like that, and we'll talk some more about that. But it was very important for what I saw here that was different than everywhere else.
Which activities are important to you, and do you find that are more popular with the members here? Well,
obviously we've got the nature aspect of it, and we've got many programs that feed off of that. There's 35 miles of trails on the island that can be enjoyed by walkers and people on horseback. If you stretched out all those trails, it would reach between here and Savannah. So, although it's a little quicker to drive there than it is to take a horse.
Some days,
but some days, right? But the arts programs. I mean, I grew up in a family with artists. I was married to an artist for many years, and she ended up being a professor at SCAD in Savannah College of Art and Design. So the art's very important. But getting out and catching big redfish and throwing nets into the Great Salt Pond to catch shrimp and whatever is a big part of what I enjoy. And then just all the way on the other end, the trust talks, very informative. Really like to do those on Thursday nights. And then even trips and tours, we host practice rounds at the Masters and things like that. So you can take advantage of a lot of different activities from the trust standpoint.
It's a very, very unique place, and that is not even a good explanation to get it started. But another unique thing about Spring Island, you being the chair of the Spring Island Trust, private communities always have a community association or a POA, but Spring Island has both a POA board and a Spring Island Trust board. So how does that work, and why is that important?
Well, it took a lot of foresight to set that up. You cannot do this after the fact. It has to be done because you have to bake in the covenants all of the protections for the different organizations. And while each board and each entity has its own responsibilities, in the case of the trust, we'd look after all these activities, but we are the steward of a big part of the property on the island and how the habitat is managed for the flora and fauna. But what we do to integrate all of this, because it is one community, the board chairs of each one of these boards sit on the respective boards. And then we make a concerted effort to make sure that the agendas are understood. We don't, any kind of documents, minutes of meetings and things like that are all exchanged, and so that we make sure that we look at that. And then the community itself is engaged with the trust. Obviously, they're engaged because they're paying dues to the Property Owners Association, but they have an interest with us too. We're supported financially through real estate transactions, but in addition, we benefit a great deal from the generosity of the members who contribute to a 501c3 foundation on behalf of the trust as well. So there's a great deal of engagement, and it's a big island in many respects, but it's a small community as well.
Well, and it sounds to me like that's a great opportunity for everybody to keep a good balance between everybody and keep everybody's best interests at heart.
You might say that the separate organizations kind of promote a community dialogue.
Right.
Well, we're here at these beautiful Tabby ruins, which shows people have been here for hundreds of years, and Spring Island, as it is today, has been here 25 years. And how are those things connected, and what do you see the trust doing for the future of Spring Island?
Well, it's an important time, as you mentioned. This is the 25th. We're coming up on the 25th anniversary of Spring Island as we know it today. And 25 years is a long time, but this was set up for the long run. And by having the structure that we have today, we're protecting those interests that we find so special. As I said, when I came here, I knew I loved it. I loved it instantaneously, but I didn't understand why. As I've spent more time here, it's still a work in progress, and I'm still learning to understand why it is that I love this place so much. And that's part of what legacy of the structure is all about, and why the trust is very important to the long-term benefit of the island.
That's great. And I assume there's information on the trust and the arts and all that on the website.
Absolutely.
At springisland.com.
Absolutely.
All righty. Well, thank you so much for being here with us.
You're welcome, and thank you.
Yes, sir. Stay with us. We'll be right back with one more segment of 843 TV.
Welcome back to 843 TV. We're here now with Mr. John Strother. He is the broker in charge at Spring Island Realty. Thanks for coming back. How are you?
Well, thank you. I'm doing great.
So it's really obvious if you come on Spring Island what would draw somebody here, but what personally drew you to Spring Island?
Well, it's like John's saying, it's a feeling that you have about Spring Island. You come across the bridge and you see the unbridled nature and just the trees, the ruins like we have here.
It's amazing.
It's just an amazing place. I remember the first time I ever came here, it was in the late 90s. It was probably about 20 years ago, and there was a dinner the trust was putting on out here. And it was a summer night, and there was a nice gentle breeze coming off the marsh, and the ruins were lit up. It was really an incredible experience. There were a couple hundred people here. And I just fell in love with the history of it and the feeling that, that people had been on this site for 300 years, you know, living the history of South Carolina. So that was one of the things, and then I spent about a day with Jim Strickland, who is the chief of historical concepts, an architectural firm in Atlanta, and they've designed 60 homes in Spring Island. Really fantastic architectural firm, and a really fantastic gentleman. You can get so excited talking to him, but he was explaining to me and showing me the different houses, the porches, the screen doors, how the houses evolved into compounds from small cottages to bigger houses.
And they don't all look the same, which I love.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's the fantastic thing about this, is they're all different, and each home expresses the personality of the person who owns it. And it's just an amazing thing.
I think that, to me, adds to the uniqueness of this community.
John, you've described a lot of the kinds of folks that are here, but can you embellish that a little bit about the kind of folks that are attracted to Spring Island?
Well, they're obviously successful people. I had a member yesterday tell me that it's one of the only places he's ever been that you know somebody for 5 or 6 years and never know what they did. Right. No one asks about that. I don't think anybody really cares about that. They enjoy being with each other and doing the different things. Spring Island has so many activities going on here that I talked to a man the other day, and he didn't play golf, he didn't play tennis, he didn't hunt, fish, shoot clays, anything. But he does all those things now because we have those things in Spring Island. And he said, for my whole life I've worked and I've accumulated, you know, I've done well. So what am I going to do?
What am I going to live now that I don't have to work?
Yes, and I'm going to do the things I've wanted to do, but I've never been able to do.
Which is what retirement is all about. It's like starting your life all over again.
Spring Island offers that supportive environment to do it. I mean, we have people that came here that never painted, that are portrait artists or landscape artists. I mean, really accomplished artists now, you know. And sure, you can do that. You can travel 30 miles away and go to a class or something, but it's with strangers and things like that. And here we have different artist programs that it's the extended family doing it. And here, let's try this.
Nurture it in more of a loving environment, for the lack of a better expression.
Well, exactly. I know.
It is. It's a good support.
Yeah.
One of the things that makes Spring Island unique is its geographical location and its seclusion. But that also means that a lot of people don't know about Spring Island. How are you going to help us with being able to make people know about Spring Island, particularly those that would find Spring Island a place they'd want to live?
Yeah, well, that's a challenge. We're located halfway between Beaufort and Hilton Head, and between Savannah and Charleston. That challenge is one of our advantages. But you know, what we're doing now is, in the past, all of our property owners came from referrals, from property owner referrals. People be looking other places. And, you know, someone would say, oh, well, have you looked at Spring Island, you know? I have a friend that owns property down there. No, so those people would come down here and they would buy. So now we're doing local outreach around here, community awareness programs like this program, TV commercials, articles in different local magazines. We have hired a new company out of Charleston to do our internet marketing, Kristen Lee. And so we've got a lot of new programs going on that have generated a lot of new leads and a lot of sales.
And because of that, the past 90 days for you guys has been pretty fun and wild. So tell us, you have like a property or a home site you can tell us about real quick?
Yes, it's been really crazy. I mean, sales are way up, and the property I want to talk about right now is 15 Bird Patch, and that was designed by Peter Brower. He's a principal of BRZ Architecture. He lives here in Spring Island. And this is a LEED Platinum certified home. To our knowledge, it's the only one in South Carolina. And he has a 2.5 acre lot, and he put this cottage, it's 1,500 acres. He's a sailor, so he designed this like a sailboat.
That's cool.
It's tight, it really is. It's such a cool home. It's tight, reclaimed materials, no artificial materials in there at all. It only costs $1,200 a year for the utility bill for this home.
Oh, wow.
I know, it's amazing. It's so quiet, it's so clean, and he sited it with the sun angles and the wind angles. There's room for the main house, and then there's room for a garage over there too on this 2.5 acre site with a pond over here and a golf course over here. And that's at $695.
Wow.
And that's just a fantastic buy. It's a fantastic home too.
That's great.
Yeah. We have a home site. One of my favorites is number 1, Live Oak Forest, which is right over there. It's a 4 acre site on the marsh. It has a great elevation change to it. Most property here is flat.
Yeah.
Well, this has just a fantastic rise and fall to it, which would give you all kinds of design possibilities. Chichester Forest Preserve to the left of it, into the road, beautiful marsh views like this. And that's a fantastic property at $395.
That lot is neat for me because it's got a pair of barred owls that nest right on the edge of that.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Well, folks, I think with those price points too, a little surprising. I think they're somewhat affordable. So, you know, contact John. What's the best way to get you if somebody's interested in these properties?
You can call us at 843-987-2200 or springisland.com.
All righty.
Well, make sure you go check out their website and make sure that you join us next time for more 843 TV.
Where communities come to speak.